Hello everyone, thank you very much for coming along. I think first of all I'm going to thank Melissa Chappell for organising these series of talks. I think it's very good to have an opportunity to discuss autism and people's experiences with it, so thank you Melissa. There's also, I think you should get a small round of applause. I think it'd be nice to get in applause. Now pretend that's for me and then I'm feeding back, Alan. Let's move further away from it. Also, we've had a few good talks. Sophie's did one called Hidden in Plain Sight, which is very good, and there's been other talks on the female experience of autism as well, which I think that needs to be looked at in greater detail. But today, despite my very inventive title, Autism and That, it's actually going to be about music and the experiences that people have with music and their life as an autistic person. Before we get to the music part, they wanted me to give like a biographical overview of my life as an autistic person. I originally thought it was going to be like an academic style lecture, and I can tell you that writing biographically is much harder and much more horrible than writing in an academic fashion. So we're going to discuss pre-diagnosis, how I was diagnosed, and what came after, me experiences, my life and stuff. And then music, sensory processing and coping mechanisms and how they're all involved in life as an autistic person. So first of all, before I start, I don't have a fancy academic email to hand out, so if you want me, Instagram or Twitter, it's pictures of cats and buildings mostly. Pre-diagnosis. I think this is the bit that everyone probably finds hardest in their life as an autistic person. It's that whole sense of not knowing. And for me, it was mainly just feeling like you were weird, or being called weird, people thinking you're weird. And worst of all, you knowing that people think you're weird. That is one of the hardest parts of it. When in truth, you're just trying to be yourself. At the same time, I'm sure we've got a few other autistic people in the room. I'm sure we have. That guy is. That kid as well. It feels very isolating. You feel like, the best way I can describe it, you're on the outside of everything. You're always kind of looking into like a world you don't quite understand. Even with people, as it says there, you hang around with, you're never quite anyone's best friend. You're always just kind of there or thereabout. And that was part of the autistic experience for me. And for me, especially as I got older, more towards my teens as well, this came through as like me just being angry all the time. I said it mostly through frustration. Couldn't get anywhere, and then as I got to like be late teens, I couldn't get a job. Job interviews, I guess they just came across as being a bit unusual, not quite the right candidate they were looking for. And through all this, I just didn't feel I was getting. I could never quite articulate how I felt about this whole thing. Trying to avoid the feedback. That seems to be the feedback area. And this then eventually gave way to what I can only describe as depression. I was diagnosed with depression around about 17, just that general feeling of like hopelessness, no sign of achieving anything, not getting anywhere, and just the sense that you weren't going to get anywhere either, and you could never quite get yourself across in a way to really like convey who you were. This is the happy part of the lecture, by the way, if anyone's wondering. This is the best way I could describe it. It was just, I mean, to an extent, you can still feel this sometimes now as an autistic person. It's strange and difficult having your mind so persistently full, and yet inside feels so like utterly empty too. Like there's so much like noise from the world around you, and you're thinking of so much, yet you've just got no way of really getting it out there. That is basically how I felt, as represented here by this beautiful empty frame. And then there was a change. As I was, like I said, dealing with depression at the time and obvious anger issues, I was sent for cognitive behavioural therapy. And eventually, through talking with the cognitive behavioural therapist, he's a small Scouse fella, very into music and football. I connected with him on that level. He sat there one day and he went, "You ever heard of Asperger's syndrome?" To which I replied, "No." That woman's heard of Asperger's syndrome. And he said to me, he said, through this, not quite understanding where you stood with people, not being able to get yourself across. And he also said, you've also mentioned, a few times, you've got very narrow interests in things. He said, it seems, these are all the things that seem to tick the boxes for Asperger's syndrome. If anyone's interested in narrow interests, if you like Iceland or German second division football, I'm your man. And he just seemed to spell it all out for me. And eventually then I went to a series of, I think it was, I can't remember the name, they were psychologists of some description. It's a very muddy period in my life, this, because as you know, when you're feeling quite down, you don't really quite retain everything that you need to. I remember just talking to these people, and they came back with a definite, you tick all the boxes. And through this, I should probably mention, which I was going to mention at the start, which I'm only going to mention now because I've got myself a bit mixed up. I was diagnosed at 26, which is apparently quite late for people. A lot of people get diagnosed earlier.
So
40? Cool. Any questions or comments or anything? We can discuss that at the end. I'll just try and run through all this. But no worries. I'll get to that bit at the end. But yeah, welcome to the Asperger's team, mate. But yeah, post-diagnosis. This is the more uplifting bit, I promise. Being diagnosed, it offered an explanation. Suddenly felt like there was a reason behind how I felt. There was like an explanation for why I was so confused and why I was so annoyed, and also why I was so interested in the country of Iceland for no good reason. It was freeing. In turn, you no longer just felt like you were weird. There was a reason behind it. Not a reason behind being weird, but you get what I mean. There was an explanation. It gave me a clearer path. I could start planning stuff out with a clear idea of how to then tackle my difficulties. This is why I'm a big advocate of people actually getting diagnosed and looking into like why they're feeling this way. I could then see of how to like plan stuff, like if it was going to frustrate me, if I was going to go to a loud place or whatever, what could I do? And this helped. It gave me confidence. I knew what I was dealing with, and I knew then as well that this strangeness, this difference was then an undeniable part of myself, which I don't know if anyone else here actually diagnosed, show of hands or anything. Quite a few. When you got your diagnosis, did you feel, did it improve you in some, did you feel in some way?
Well, what we're doing now.
Cool, comes to that at the end. That's a no, a yes.
Almost like a grieving process of anger, blame, severe depression and suicidal thoughts, which he's still having even now. Oh no.
Positive. Imposter syndrome. That's a key one. Guess that's a thing. That's kind of like more how I felt. It kind of it was like an explanation, like putting like a definition next to myself. But for me, it helped. I felt it really helped. It let me know how to tackle what I was tackling. And also, again, because I could plan stuff out better as well, I eventually could be more honest with people and how I felt and what I was like. I met a girl as well. This is about 6 years ago. It went quite well. She said yes eventually. And like I said, you can plan more, you can be more yourself with it. I applied for college as well at one point, and eventually 6 years later I've ended up here giving a lecture in the university that I went to on a subject that means quite a lot to me, so they go well. All of this though, this is the fun bit, is because of music. I would not have been able to get here without having music in my life. It's always there, no matter how bleak or great the situation, there's always music there for you. Something that I discovered as well that was truly and like unequivocally mine. I could really lay claim to how I felt about it. This came mostly, well first of all before I was diagnosed, this came through listening to like the radio, stuff like John Peel and Steve Lamacq, just hearing bands on there constantly, stuff like the Manic Street Preachers, Idlewild, Mogwai, Twilight Sad. If them bands mean anything to anyone in this room, which I'm doubting. This really like galvanised, like to really focus in on, something to like not obsess over, but to really feel part of. It's also continued like throughout my time at university as well. So it continued with me all through college, all the way from high school to this point. And even the University of Liverpool, I got a chance to experience music while studying politics with Stuart Brooks-Heath. Got to choose the songs on the weekly politics radio show, which was great fun, to be honest. As I was saying, music as well, through listening to them bands and through interacting with them songs and getting to choose them songs, it makes you feel, no phones, whoever that was, makes you feel part of something, which I believe as an autistic person is very important. Because like I said at the start, you feel like pretty much on the outside of everything. And music itself, you feel like you know that song, you know that band, you know they're speaking to you, you feel like you are part of it. It's like, you instantly immerse and interact, and you can hear how that song is formed. I don't know if anyone else feels this way about music, but for me, as an autistic person, it just always brought me into something. That guy again as well. Also, it's a great picture. It gave me a chance to perform too. It's really got me to bring myself out of myself rather than just sitting around listening to music. It gave me an opportunity. Before I was diagnosed as well, it was proved to be my first real thing I loved. It opened up music even more. I could then appreciate how the songs were created, and I could focus in on them even further. It also, significantly, again for an autistic person, led me to meeting more people and having to interact. If you want to play the drums in a band, you've got to then put up with guitarists and bass players and worst of all singers, and occasionally keyboard players. And this was vital because it made me have to go out and speak to people and actually, again, become part of something that wasn't just me sitting at home, listening to the radio, reading an atlas on Iceland. I mean, significantly as well, with having to be, especially being a drummer, because you have more equipment than everyone else. If you wanted to play, you had to adapt to changing situations, which I know is something, even now, I don't particularly deal with very well. And I think this is common for most autistic people. You have to have a routine of some description. And there is no routine when you're playing in a band. You've got to basically just get up and get yourself from point A in the country to point B in the country, wherever that may be. And it forced me out of my comfort zone. This is one of the vital parts of music again. And through this, drink break. Ended up, one of the vital things I think with this talk was we want to try and break stereotypes of autistic people. And what this gave me was, rather than just being the quiet kid who just kind of sat away, doing his own thing, minding his own business, it really gave me a chance to, perform and bring attention onto myself as well. And through this, it gave me control of situations. When you're on stage as well, you're basically in control of that room that you're playing to. And I think this, in a roundabout way, proves a really vital point for people with autism, or for autistic people. That's a better way of phrasing that. Sorry, Melissa. You often feel you have a total lack of control of what's going around you. The world's always too noisy. People are always too in your face. Socks usually feel too weird. Everything is pretty much against you as an autistic person. But through performing, it gave me complete control of the room I was in, especially, again, as the drummer. Everything kind of stops and goes with you, much to the grievance of everyone else around you. But I think people who've taught me have probably noticed this as well. I tend to try and hijack conversations or rooms that, again, gives me that sense of control when I feel things are going beyond me. And making noise on stage, is the best way I can put it, can stop the noise from the rest of the world around you, which there's a lot all the time. It never, ever really seems to stop. But when you're making the main bit of noise, especially, again, as a drummer, that's the vital part. This is good noise, because there is bad noise around us all the time. It's the enemy of autistic people, all this noise. And when I say noise, I'm kind of like encompassing everything. There's like a constant noise that's always there, isn't there? That's constantly invading your thoughts, distracting you from what you need to do. But again, music can be used as a way to cope with that. It shuts out the barrage of information that we have thrown at us. It's basically, I think Melissa defined this in one of her opening talks, that it's basically, autism is a difference in cognition. Again. There is difference in cognition. Obviously, we interpret the world around us differently. And sometimes you need something just to try and edit that noise. And I think to listening to music, it can really do that. It has this emotional effect. It can bring you back round or remove from the situation you're in, whatever's needed of it. That is what music can do for you. For me, I'd never be able to get up, I go to the University of Manchester now. I would never be able to get up Oxford Road without having my headphones on, or get through Lime Street at rush hour without something really heavy, like blasting in my ears or something really melodic. And to bring this back round, this is how I feel about music and autism. So far, science and medicine are yet to truly explain or bring much comfort to being autistic. There's still all talks and theories and all kinds of ideas about how this started. But music, I believe, has brought comfort and, in a way, helps explain us to ourselves. And I think that is my last slide, so yeah, I'll end on that one. So I will take questions in the next couple of minutes as I have a drink. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions from the floor or anything?
Did you ever find when you were actually studying or doing like work that listening to music helped you to focus on what you were doing?
Yes, it does. Instrumental music though.
Right.
Stuff with lyrics tend to end up every now and then writing the lyric by mistake into the essay.
Because he listens to music all the time, even when he's doing homework and things like that. He's got his headphones on. I don't know, he's concentrating on what he's doing.
No,
I have to have complete silence.
if I'm like coming around to a conclusion or like a really vital part of an essay, I tend to switch everything off and I have to get this down in this order. Especially studying politics, when how you word stuff's really vital to how you convey your argument. But most of the time when I'm planning it out, I always have music on. Usually something I know, so I'm not going to interact with it too much. Nothing new, so I'm not listening to what it's going to sound like. But especially usually instrumental stuff. A band called Sigur Rós are really good for that. Pardon?
If I need something aggressive close to your heart, it's a more aggressive form of drum and bass.
All right, aggressive drum and bass. I can't say I've tried that while I've been working, but I will give it a go.
People find headphones helpful when they're out and about, whether there's music or not. But obviously there's safety issues around that, so awareness of your environment, but also the risk of, somebody going to steal them. I'm wondering if you've ever thought about that, how you've interacted with that, and if you've come up with any ways to maybe keep more aware when you're using music, but also like just keeping vigilant about people around you and keeping you safe.
Well, yeah, I don't know if I have any techniques to it, but I always try and keep vigilant anyway. I mean, no disrespect, but being from Liverpool, you've got to kind of look out for stuff on the street, haven't you? But when I have my headphones on, it's always so I can, if I don't have them in, I'm then so focused on trying to shut everything out that I can't focus on anything. With the music, it's going to be there as like something to kind of hold everything together, so I can focus on everything around me. That doesn't exactly answer your question, that's more of a personal anecdote for it, but so I was.
Doesn't that work for an NT or neurotypical, somebody who isn't autistic, just walking around with headphones on anyway? Which is
So yeah, of course it is a danger for anyone, but
Yeah.
for autistic people, we find it's more detrimental to have their headphones on, because maybe neurotypical could think, well, I don't need them today.
Whereas we, in my situation anyway, you kind of have to have them, because if I don't have them on, I'm pretty much distracted by everything. Yeah. You just
My headphones go into school/college every day. I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun.
you just got to like try and keep yourself aware of your surroundings. Like,
It has an effect on my day. It makes my day less good if I don't have my headphones with me.
yeah, same man. If I can't listen to music as I'm going around, then I'm basically not going to function properly for the whole day. That's how it goes.
I will second that.
Seconded. Good. Any more questions, comments, or thoughts upon thoughts?
You're studying at university.
What am I studying? I'm doing a Masters in Democracy and Elections in Manchester. It's quantitative. More numbers than words.
How can we use music therapy? Any ideas on?
Music therapy?
Yeah.
Uh,
Get music therapy for him, obviously, because he loves the drums and music as well. And I think it could be really something that would help him deal with his emotions and his anxieties and things. And they bring instruments and do a therapy using music. And I was wondering if you'd had any experience or anybody's had any experience of that.
I've not personally. Not in a teaching environment, and I've got a friend who has a severely autistic younger brother, and gave him one of my toms and a drumstick once, and he was happy for hours. We weren't, but he was made up. It is proven to help. I know a few musicians from bands I've played with who said that learning instruments or just having the opportunity just to make noise or get whatever's in them out somehow has been really beneficial. So picking up an instrument, especially the drums, maybe not for you or your neighbours, I think would be a great benefit. And even without just playing, even just that idea of listening, because people advocate this idea of white noise, don't they? To listen to white sleep, that's for everyone. But getting them into certain bands or certain styles of music can really if they can associate that with being chilled out or feeling better.
I mean, Foo Fighters are his favourite band, so I'm sure it's that chill.
If drums with those get electric ones on, and if you wear headphones, you can wear the headphones that don't
Yeah.
upset the neighbours.
It's probably better than me now, don't he? I've got electric drum kit in me flat. I'm a great advocate of them because you can play your music through them as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Any more questions? Stuart? Hi.
Ken, do you know if you hear things which other people don't ordinarily?
Yeah, I've got hyperacute hearing. I also have tinnitus as well.
Is that ever a beneficial thing, a useful skill, or is it always?
I've,
And also
sorry.
linked to that, do you think you hear things in music that other people wouldn't typically pick up?
This is something I kind of skipped over in the lecture because I didn't know if people would really be able to interact with it fully. Just wait till this guy leaves the room and I'll answer. Right. I do have hyperacute hearing and tinnitus, so that is a constant burden. I wouldn't say I get any kind of benefit from that.
What you do is after the drum session, you've got to block some gear out, or
Pardon?
have you got to block some of the sound out when you drum with your tinnitus?
Oh yeah, I
Always
wear earplugs. Always wear earplugs whenever you play. Whenever you go to gigs or any loud environments.
What you like for numbness and all that afterwards?
Oh, nothing ever brings me any comfort from my tinnitus. I just learned to live with it. So, sorry. There is one trick if you want to get a brief relief from it. If you get your hand like this, and get your fingers like that, and then tap on the mastoid bone. It shuts it out for a little while, but it will come back. Yeah.
How do you cope with tinnitus? That would actually
Very frustratingly. It's it came out of Stuart's question. With I do hear things different. I think a lot of autistic people have heightened senses in some capacity. Mine's me smell and me hearing, not me eyesight, obviously. Yours is your hearing. But with my experience of being an autistic person, I also have synesthesia as well. When I hear music, I can actually see it as well, more like in your mind's eye kind of thing. Also with smells too, in colours. This is where instrumental music's quite good because instrumental music kind of really brings it out to you. Usually tended to choose songs and stuff. Remember when we both chose Army of Me? That's a very purple song by Bjork to me, and and the bass and everything. It's very colourful. So that's how I experience music. Does that answer your question in any way, Stuart?
Yeah, totally answers. I can't imagine seeing colours when I listen to music.
It's great. That's one of the things why I really enjoy it. The smell side of it is very frustrating. Especially going to Lush, it's like having an assault on your brain. But with music though, it's brilliant. were we next? Did anyone else have a follow-up to that?
Sort of, like, I realised synesthesia was something that other people might be an autistic thing, actually, because for me it's not music, it's words.
Words?
And I've never,
Yeah, synesthesia. Yeah, to go on a slight aside, synesthesia it can be a combination of senses, but of any senses, some people can hear words that have a taste attached to them, which I can't imagine that.
Lady online called Wendy Langdon, and listen to some of her lectures. She kind of explains synesthesia.
Yeah, so you can like, I can hear, I can see sound, I can see smells as well. But some people can do it the other way around as well. But the one with words is interesting because I obviously can't imagine that would be.
it's strange, it's been really useful sometimes, because I work in a lab, and if you've got a specific thing, a specific gene, and you've got it in a specific colour, people say, but don't you forget which it is? It's like, well, no, that one isn't.
Yeah, it just seems to make sense to you, doesn't it?
It makes sense to me, and everyone looks at me really weird.
No, it's just how it sort of becomes part of your life. Because like when I, especially when I make playlists now or something, or choose songs for like certain occasions or certain emotions. Because obviously some emotions and stuff obviously have colours attached to them by like media association. Obviously, red, colour of love, or colour of blood and anger, one or the other. So then they get connected anyway. So when you're making a playlist and you go, this song sounds red to me. This should go here for this situation. I don't know if it's a common thing with people who are autistic or whatnot, but there's like a way of your senses kind of like compensating for something else. I think that'd be interesting. But that is probably one of the big reasons of why music's been so much to me. Go on.
Especially when I listen to something, it's especially chaotic song with a lot of different things in it, I can almost pick out, like I can focus especially directly on one particular thing.
Yeah.
For some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, one of the things that I got into recently, more when I went to university actually, because of, he's not here today, Nicholas Lees, one of the international relations lecturer for in the department, he's very much into black metal and heavy like instrumental metal called doom metal, which is one of my favourite things. And that this is like, it's incredibly loud and incredibly full sounding, and that it is very colourful as well. It can really it really shuts everything else out when you're listening to stuff. But yeah, that's something I've not really thought of exploring in this. So if I ever do this lecture again, I'll add that bit to it, Stuart. Any further questions or comments on anything? Jack?
So you said obviously music is like a massive part of your life.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, and you said it was like your first love. And like, what age did you become attached to music and start developing an interest in it? And how did that sort of come about?
It was. No, my parents weren't really that my mum was very much into like Motown and soul music, like everyone's mum in the north of England. And my dad had like one Top Gear tape that he played over and over again. And that was my only really outstanding memories of music. But I remember someone getting me them old massive hi-fis you could get for like a tenner from the market. And I got Radio 1 on it, and I mentioned in this, they had this thing called the Evening Session with Steve Lamacq, and then afterwards the John Peel Show. And they'd play different styles of music, like different bands would be in session. And I was about 14 at the time, and around high school and everything, that's when you first start realising, you go, you know what, I am different to everyone else. Everyone else has got mates, I've not got mates. And then hearing like the music in it, I was like, it's something, I wanted to try and be involved in it, so I wanted it to be more than just me listening. And I remember going to the music corridor in my high school and saying, what lessons have you got going? I thought the steel drums were quite cool, so maybe because they had notes on. And they went, we've got one space for drum kit, like why are you taking it? Because I wasn't one of the best behaved lads in high school, I'll be honest. And so I took one drum lesson, I did, and they did the whole counting thing, the 1, 2, 3, 4 of it, and then he went, have you done this before? And I went, never done it. And he went, you just picked it up, and that was it then. That was half my lifetime ago. And then every night I'd go home, listen to the Steve Lamacq or John Peel session, and listen to every track and go, listen to the drums, and basically just sit there and like just basically beat me knees black and blue trying to figure out the drum beats to it, and eventually got a drum kit, and that was it.
My partner plays guitar like that by listening to
With
music.
slaps his
He
knees.
doesn't read music,
No.
but he plays the guitar,
Yeah.
and he learns a piece of music like that by listening to it and playing it. He's never read music.
It's the best way of doing it. It's just through listening, just listening and playing, listening and playing. especially if you're going to get into being a musician at any point in your life, mate. The more you listen and the more you practice, the better you're going to be. I mean, obviously there is something to be said about learning notation and stuff, but just listening and listening and listening, and especially it can work as therapy then as well. But it's cool that you can just pick out lead guitar. I can't do that. I've played guitar for 14 years. I can do it with drums and bass, but guitar I just can't do it at all. I'm a very average guitarist. Any more questions or comments or anything?
Just another one linked to that on music. Do you think music's been kind of, in terms of, was it more important pre-diagnosis or post-diagnosis, or do you think it's kind of remained a constant level of importance to you?
I think its importance changed after the diagnosis. Beforehand, it was like the thing I clung on to, so to speak. That was the kind of the anchor that, like, you know, kept me like attached to like this part of the world. Is that I wanted to play music, and no matter how unhappy or depressed I got, I could always go put on a song or a few songs and just listen to them, especially when, like, you know, MP3 players and stuff came out. Sorry, I may have shown my age then, but in fact you could walk around and listen to it as well. But then after I was diagnosed, because I knew, like I said, I knew what I was dealing with, I knew how to tackle these things, I could then like plan out what I was listening to more. And rather than just relying on maybe the same few bands over and over again, I could then really like expand into new stuff like black metal, doom metal, Björk, hip hop as well, stuff like Aesop rock and stuff like that. It can really work its way into your mind. So I think its importance changed, and along with how I was dealing with being autistic at the time.
Getting back to the education system, and you've been at school and now been at university, do you find now that you've got your diagnosis that you're more accepted in university than you ever were at school?
I knew, well, at school, when I went, being autistic wasn't really something that was discussed a great deal, and dyslexia wasn't really a thing either. I've got that as well, if anyone else wants to, you know, interact with it. Dyslexia and dyspraxia, so I can't read and write very well, so to speak. But after I was diagnosed, there's stuff in place, like at the University of Liverpool, they have like, you can have extra time in your exams, you can be sat separate. Because I was sat separate in college, but that was mainly because I was seen as a disruptive force in the college. I was sat separate in a room full of naughty kids, and then I was removed from them because I was distracting to them. And but at the university, I was just put separate in a room with a computer where I could just type and take me time with it.
He's just done one of his GCSEs a year earlier, and he's been in a separate room, and he does all his work on a computer because it's easier than trying to write.
Did you find it better? Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice one.
Absolutely eligible. It doesn't look like it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Just find it like, and then forcing someone across.
Yeah, well, the writing is really hard. One of the nicest things Amy ever did for me actually was Stuart Luxeagle, when I was had to fill in a form for payment for a job, and I couldn't. He just went, "Do you want me to write that for you?" And that was one of the best things I think anyone's ever done.
I fill all my partner's paperwork, and if he needs anything filled in, it's official because his writing is worse than a 14-year-old.
Any other autistic people in here got particularly legible handwriting? Little dude again. Everyone else got pretty decent handwriting then? Is it just me? I feel quite alone here now. You're not autistic, but your handwriting is terrible. That's true. But,
Being thrown out of anywhere, like just drum, like say on a bus or whatever.
Pardon?
Being told not to, like drum, say you're on a bus and you just did your own next minute.
Oh, and then if I have the music on, I can just like sit back and just focus on what the drums are.
Or from your own, like, not just like having drums, but you might be just tapping somewhere
Yeah.
on a bus. Or you might just singing out from the music itself. Have you ever been, like, told to leave or to stop?
I've had people confront me about multiple things. Usually, like I'm staring at something that I wasn't intending to stare at, or that I'm moving around a lot. I also have a tic as well. When I'm particularly stressed, I make this noise a lot, which I try not to do, especially in classes. And people just go, "What's up with you?" And it's like,
I get accused all the time because I step up when I just phase out, I'll just kind of start having this stare into the space, and people are usually like, "What? Go ahead."
yeah, that's actually something we've got to try and deal with. Is like people just don't enjoy being stared at, do they? Yeah, I've had a few like altercations and stuff, especially when I was younger. Especially before I was diagnosed, when I said I was angry a lot, I used to get myself in a bit of bother with quite a few people when I'd go out, and also not having the sense to go, "It's all right, leave it."
Didn't know what it was at the time.
No, because like, it's like I said, at the same time I was frustrated as well. So it would just take someone just to like say something to me and that's it. I'd be off. And I'd have a go at them. Especially, I used to play for a football team as well and that was terrible. I was feeling a bit frustrated. You know what? It is a wonder I'm still here. Yeah, my brothers have said that quite a few times. Yeah.
You talk about being frustrated through anger. Over the course of these lectures, we've heard quite a few people talk about the meltdowns that they have.
Yeah.
So, your experience, they weren't meltdowns as such. You were expressing frustration through anger.
Yeah, I'm I suppose fortunate in that way. I don't actually have meltdowns, as in like, well, I have like probably my equivalent of them. I don't have that time where, you know, some people have to have that moment where they just go in on themselves. I've known people.
My partner shut down, he just takes himself off and closes himself away from the world.
Yeah, I have them as well.
Yeah.
I know people just like shut off and like just basically kneel down and start screaming.
Comes in on mindfulness.
Yeah.
No, that's for the colourful thing when you're doing a mindfulness thing. Same thing, what colour?
So lots of people use time out, I think, for all sorts of reasons and all sorts of conditions, obviously. And even people that don't consider themselves to have any condition and diagnosed. So did not having those typical experiences make the diagnosis harder for you?
I think that's what you mean by typical experiences.
Okay.
I think it was just because
Spectrum, innit? That's the thing.
it's a huge spectrum. I think just because I wasn't having meltdowns, I think
What a coincidence, like.
yeah, I think the frustration that I was experiencing and the fact that why I was being frustrated, the fact that I couldn't understand why I wasn't interacting with people at the time and why I wasn't really being able to like communicate my issues or anything. I think that was it. I mean, maybe I don't know if they classed like the huge outburst of anger that I'd have as a form of meltdown, just because I didn't go in on myself.
It's still frustration, isn't it?
It was basically just born out of frustration. I just basically, it felt like for ages, as I said earlier in that, if I didn't feel angry, I didn't really feel anything. That was how it was felt. Any more questions? Any more, you know, happier questions to end on or anything? Do you have a question, sir?
Are you diagnosed with anything else other than autism?
And this
Apart from the dyspraxia?
dyspraxia and depression as well. Anything else?
Actually, when you got diagnosed, did you find that a lot of people around you were like a bit more? Because I found they did a presentation in my school about autism, and at that point I had people knew, but not many people, just because they couldn't really be bothered going around and saying, oh yeah, I have autism, because it felt like a broken record. And when they came out and said, they did a presentation, it's like, yes, by the way, I have autism, if you wanted to know. And a lot of people were like, right, that's why you do a lot of stuff that you do, and a lot of people like understood why I did what I did a lot more.
So
Is that something that you experienced?
you're asking if people understood me more or treated me differently?
Not even that, just
They
like,
become more accepting of who you are and why you do the
or
work things you
kind
do.
of like said,
I think
why
so.
do you do what you do? Like,
I think it was a very mixed response at the time. Like I had some friends who just went, that explains why he goes off on one. And I had some other people just go, it's just an excuse all the time. It's like you get out of jail free card. You know, people accusing you of it. And I had people as well who were in my life at the time who try and use it against you and go, you've only done this because you're autistic. It's just this is the way why you're thinking this way.
But you don't look autistic because there is
Yeah.
that stereotypical image of an autistic of sat in the corner, non-verbal, rocking back and two.
Yeah.
And you go Asperger's and you go, what's that? And you go, well, it's an autistic spectrum condition.
Well, I just say
Autistic.
I just say I'm autistic. I don't usually use Asperger's syndrome. I just used it in this because that was what it was called at the time.
Yeah, because they don't diagnose Asperger's now, really.
No, it's got a bit of an unpleasant record as well, hasn't it? Yeah. Sorry. You don't look stupid, but what?
oh, you don't look autistic. Yeah, and you don't look stupid, but you certainly are.
I like that. That's I think we can try and use that one in the future. No, I'm not. Is this an offer? Like, bassist. This is one of the things that I have struggled with. Obviously, being autistic, I am.
I can take my shoes off and home.
All right, we've got a three-piece on the go right now. One of the things that I did find difficult was obviously interacting with people, having to be in close proximity with them people all the time. I've been told by numerous people I'm infamously hard to get on with, especially Thanks for laughing. Two friends have got in the room.
People used to think, even family, that my partner was ignorant and he was antisocial because whenever
Yeah.
he came round, he'd disappear upstairs until he was diagnosed, and then they were like, that's why he just moved up. And I'm like, yeah. We call it his light bulb moment when he got his diagnosis.
Yeah, that's what it was. It explained so much stuff. Being in a band, it explained to me why I'd stormed out of a few bands in the past, or why I'd punch-ups with people. I mean, recently I just wasn't enjoying being in the band I was in. I do still make music. I released a song in January that was just of my own, which is basically just an electronic thing I made.
It's getting that balance, isn't it? Because I was in a band as well, and I got a lot of benefits from it, like you.
Yeah.
Drumming again and stuff. And for exactly the same reason I left, because I didn't get on with didn't get on with the people, or they didn't get on with me. That interaction just caused too much.
It causes too much friction as you're doing it.
And that way you know we don't have to talk to anyone.
What was all yellow in that Coldplay song?
What?
And it was all yellow.
It was all yellow. I don't know what he was on about there,
No.
to be honest. It was the last good record they made as well, so. Yeah. I don't know what was all there, but yeah, with the band interaction thing, it's hard, isn't it?
I loved it, and I got so much from it, but it was the people.
Yeah. This is the main problem with the world. It is other people. This is the main issue. Your pardon?
Unfortunately, there's people in a band.
Yeah, there is. I just kind of ended up rubbing people the wrong way. See, one of my things was with the bands I was in. A lot of them like drinking and doing drugs and doing all this kind of stuff. And apart from the drinking, the drugs bit is really not for me, especially as an autistic person. You've got so much messing with your mind anyway. You don't need people around you like doing all kinds. I'm just like, I want none of this. Don't want anything to do with it. And they'd be like, oh, why have you been this way? And it's just like, I'd rather not be successful, not play in the band at all, than be around, junkies like you. That was one of the issues that I had with my band. I don't know if your band were into drugs as well. I'm not saying they are.
It was a samba band.
Samba?
Carnival style band.
All right, mine were much more miserable than that. They were a grunge band.
So basically, they were trying to live the B-Tech rock star life.
B-Tech rock star life.
Go for that rock star lifestyle and just sort of words.
Who?
This band that you're part of drinks and drugs.
Yeah, some of them really thought they were there before they actually made anything. No, some of the bands I played in, we did play like decent venues, supported bands like Ash, played Leeds Festival, stuff like that. So I wouldn't say it was quite B-Tech, but some of them just kind of go along with it and just go, oh, we're here now. Pass me the red wine or whatever, I don't know.
So what are your opinions or feelings on CBVO, which is completely legally?
I've never done it. I've got no idea, but if it helps people, great.
Both my son and partner use it. My partner says it slows his brain down. That's exactly how he explains it. He's diagnosed with Asperger's, OCD and ADHD, and he said it's like it slows his brain
Yeah, if it
down.
slows his brain on it, it's great. My opinion on it is that if it helps you, then, and it's obviously having a benefit on your life, then there's no problem with it. I've never taken it myself. I don't have OCD or ADHD, so I can't really say. I just have a lot of noise. For anxiety, it helps with that too. And for de-stress as well.
Because I can get very on edge with annoying people at school, and having that it's a bit less of a...
Yeah, it's not quite the same as taking a spliff out, is it?
I think his friend described it as he's less aggy.
Aggie? No, that for a while.
I don't just want to go to people, just shut up, you stupid imbecile.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't do that too often, mate.
Yeah, probably shouldn't. It's not known to be.
From lived experience, I can say going and telling people to shut up doesn't always work out. Especially studying politics doesn't work. Which you want to sometimes.
I'm not going to go into politics.
Ah, you're missing out.
Actually, Ken, now that you're saying that with going into
Give me a
a
minute.
band, it pushed you outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Did you learn social skills while you were working, going to bands and things? Did you pick things up?
Yeah, it was a big help. It was when I started playing drums. Obviously, you had to then be with other people. My first experience was something called the Halton Youth Orchestra, in which I had to be the percussionist at the back of all these clarinet and brass players. First ever song I played live was Under the Sea from The Little Mermaid. And of course, you had to then interact with all these people, and then obviously wanted to do more creative stuff. It did really help. Yeah, I'm from the capital of the Northwest, which is Widnes. Unlucky. Yeah, it was the whole interaction thing that helped, and obviously being in bands then afterwards, when you're trying to write songs, it's a very communicative experience. You've got to then make sure you're all pleased with it, and you're all on the same page, and you all want to go in the same direction. It was really what helped me to interact with other people and to be more respectful, more regarded of other people's opinions and their points of view. Because it's like sometimes you go like, why do you want to play that chord there? Why are you muting it? It sounds like a boring punk song, and you can't just say that. Because then it might just be like, I think this sounds great. I've put loads of work into this. It's basically learning emotional intelligence, I think, is one of the things that music helped me do. And also listening to songs that obviously sing about emotions too can help you a great deal. So I'd advise anyone to go out, form a band, make a song.
I was wondering if you've seen the A-Word documentary series type thing, which was on the BBC.
The A-Word on BBC. I think I've missed that one. Have we? I'm informed by my autistic partners in crime over here that it's best that we missed it out. Apparently not so much. I think you touched on an important subject though, which is to do just moving slightly away from music creativity, the idea of autism on film, and in music to an extent, because there obviously are autistic musicians out there, but in film and in the media, representations are usually very poor. The best I've seen, I think, is, how's it called, the Netflix one? Atypical? Atypical. That's probably the second series in particular, I think, is better. I'm very emotionally stunted. I didn't cry much, but it was good. I felt it was a good representation, especially when he was trying to interact with a girl and everything. That's a definite learning curve.
It was the mum that made me cry, because I watched myself on screen going, yeah, I do that.
I think that.
She got all those t-shirts for him, and they were all the same t-shirts in the same colour, and she'd phoned round all day, and she was so happy.
Yeah.
She told them at dinner, and they were all like, I spend my days wearing my t-shirts.
Yeah, colours and clothing surprisingly comes in a lot in music when you're in a band as well, because you've got to usually have your t-shirt and everything. I've got this awful habit of only wearing black usually. So today my wife decided to choose my outfit for me, and she's much more fashionably aware than I am. But wearing black all the time, and on stage I usually wouldn't wear a shirt. Beautiful image for you all there, by the way. Just because I couldn't stand the feeling of anything on me. I've got a friend she's a fitness model, and she's was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, and she can pretty much only wear gym clothes. She's a friend of ours, isn't she? Like anything else, if she has to wear a dress or anything, she has to only wear the dress, and she's like that the entire time. But luckily she just does gym modelling. Yeah, clothing's a very vital part of it as well. I feel I've deviated from music here. This is quite brilliant. Yeah.
This is a question you don't have to answer if you don't want to. It's quite personal. Is your partner on the spectrum, or is she neurotypical?
My partner is apparently neurotypical. Yeah. And I'm very tolerant as well. I was just up when we met. I was just up front with her and said, "Listen, I've been diagnosed as autistic." Luckily, she knew my brother beforehand, and I have two brothers. The middle one isn't autistic, and he said to me, "He went, you'll love this girl." He went, "She's weird, but like you." But that was how we got together, and we got together through music as well, because I asked if she liked a band called Modest Mouse. So.
We got together through my partner's passion of cars as well.
For cars?
Cars. We're massive petrol heads in our house, and his mum always told me, "Keep talking about cars, you're never going to meet anyone."
I see. I'm from a family of mechanics, and unfortunately, my narrow obsession wasn't cars, so it wasn't that easy. Anything further? Anything more to add? Unless
I saw on Twitter before that you put together a playlist for the talk. I'm wondering how can everyone access that?
Oh, it's on. If anyone has Spotify,
I don't have Twitter or Spotify.
then you won't be able to find it.
I'm on TalkBars.
I put a link on my Twitter, which is at 14 Autumns, if anyone's interested. And it's to a playlist basically of songs and bands that basically inspired me and got me to this point. Songs that I found colourful, songs that I found interesting, or songs with lyrics that basically just, I went, yeah, I recognise that, I feel something in that. Or that I listened to at different points in my life that basically kind of just dragged me out of like the mire and went, you know, slapped me around the face and you went, you know, things aren't so bad, I can do this, I could play this on the drums, or I could dream about one day being able to play this on the drums, that kind of thing. Yeah, the place is available. Like I said, go through my Twitter, or on Spotify as well, which I'll circulate. And we're going to circulate this. Apparently I'm been filmed by the wonderful Alan up there as well, who's asked me to remain central, which I realise I've not done. So all the so all the links and everything will be available at the end of this. Yeah.
As well, if you decide to do it on YouTube, then you can upload everything with the link to the Spotify.
Yeah. So we'll try and circulate everything. If anyone wants any emails at the end, just feel free to talk to me. If anyone wants to chat one-on-one afterwards, feel free to come and speak. But yeah, I think that's... Any more questions or anything? Round of applause, that'll do. I'll take a round of applause.